Today I'm joined by Jose Ferreira, a player now in Finland, but is Portuguese. I wanted to welcome you to the show and ask you how you're doing.
Hi, I'm doing really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity of coming in. I'm really excited to do this. So we're really looking forward to it.
You've had a great journey spanning England and Italy and other places where you've had offers from Italy. Not quite moved there, but maybe in the future. And now you're currently over in Finland. But I wanted to start with when you were in Portugal as a young boy growing up. What was that like?
So football in Portugal is a massive culture. You can grow up playing in the streets, playing with your friends, and pretty much everyone's experienced some sort of youth football in Portugal, no matter who they are. They might have not come to professional football, but the football is everywhere, so everyone experiences it to some extent. And the exciting thing about football in Portugal is like the vast amount of clubs, and you can start at amateur clubs as well. And the actual level of grassroots football in Portugal is actually really, really strong. The quality of coaching is amazing, and the amount of like school that the coaches actually have to go through, they reach like really extensive amount of knowledge, and they might not actually get to professional football, so they might stick with grassroots. So it's really good for youth development. And I think in my mind, that's like one of the reasons why you see so many youth players coming from Portugal. But so I actually started my career after seeing people play at my school and asking my dad to just join with that school team. And that's kind of how it started before going on into actual grassroots clubs.
You've played over in England, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But you mentioned grassroots in Portugal. Did you see a similar adjustment to life in the two countries?
It was quite different, as in the style of play as well. It took a bit of getting used to in the beginning. I did think even when I was playing in Portugal that my style would actually probably be more suited to England than to Portugal, because the way that football's played in Portugal, it can be quite slow paced at times, but because there's so much emphasis on tactical side and reading of the game and everything. And England, physicality plays like a major role. So it took some getting used to in that aspect of adapting to the physical style of play, and then as well as that, adapting to the weather. The weather is completely different in the UK to what we experience in Portugal. I've just come back from Portugal actually not long ago, and I was mentioning to my parents, I feel like it's a very ungenerous winter this year, and it was actually like 10 degrees, 15 degrees, so it's actually not even that bad compared to the UK, but it took some adapting in that aspect as well.
The weather in the UK is absolutely horrendous, but the career is just where it starts to take off. You said to your dad, I want to join in. You would like to play with these people that you were watching play in your school. And that went quite well for you, the opportunity of trialing out with Sporting. But just before that, when you really started the first kick of football, what was that like?
But sorry, before I started getting into football.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of my emphasis growing up was on the education side of things. So the access to football could have been a bit more complicated due to like the focus on education. I did have that chance to go over to Sporting, and I think that's when everything really started picking up. So I was there for 2 weeks before looking for a club a bit closer to home, because at the time the Sporting Academy is actually like not in Lisbon, which is where I'm from. The Sporting Academy is actually just over an hour, I say an hour and a half maybe, from Lisbon, and you have to usually travel to the stadium and then get a coach over, or unless you're actually staying there, which was quite common at the time. But obviously with the education focus, I just joined an international school close to where I lived, so I had to stick to the area. And I went over to a club called Grupo Sportivo Carcavelos, where I spent the majority of my youth football career. So that was between the ages, I want to say like up until 15, maybe from 11. I was captain of a couple of the youth teams, one player of the year a couple of times at the club as well. So from what I remember, I think the first player to win it twice, so 2 seasons in a row at 2 different age groups. So that was pretty exciting at the time for me as well. It was a really important part of my youth development, as well as my school team, which I was playing at the same time. A very, very big part of my development. So an actual interesting story at the time was I went for a football tournament when I was about 8, I want to say, over to Coventry. And we played Coventry City as well. And at the time, I was actually a goalkeeper. I wasn't a fullback like today. And I had a really good tournament. And at the end, one of the coaches actually came to my parents to see about the possibility of moving over to the UK and joining his Coventry City at the time. But obviously, like, it wasn't as easy for my family to commit to something like that. My dad had a really good working position in Portugal, and it wouldn't justify a change like that based on football. And actually, in hindsight, it's probably not the best thing to do, because as a 5'8" goalkeeper, I don't know what the possibilities would have been going into senior football. So it's probably a good thing that I stuck to right back, actually.
Although the trial with Sporting didn't actually happen, you must have been seeing the Sporting facilities, and we know how much of a great club they are, Champions League, Europa League, near enough all the time. What are the facilities like in Sporting Lisbon? Are they world class? Are they as good as we'd expect?
I would say probably as elite as you can get in Portuguese football. The quality of the facilities, and the crazy thing is it's still improving every day. For me, it was spectacular to see something like that, and we could see the first team training as well. So that's something. For example, the likes of Liverpool, at the time, the facility a couple of years ago, they had Melwood and Kirby, and what I thought was not as good for the youth team, with the fact that they were at Kirby and the first team was at Melwood. You couldn't see the first team playing, and you could see that at Sporting. We could literally be training on one pitch and the first team over there, and you could watch as it was happening, and it gave you like a clear pathway of like, this is where you want to be, and all the youth teams across would be able to see this every day. And I think that's like motivationally and psychologically, it's such a big factor, because a lot of football, I think, is psychological. The mental side of the game is so important. And this, when you're going through the youth development stage, it gives you, like, for me, it gives you a certain focus to know that the steps are there, the path is there. And the quality of the facilities were crazy. The kitchen, the quality of the food being served every day, like minor details like that, to just the amount, the vast amount of grass pitches as well. And you had like a stadium within the actual academy, which is where the games were played, where there would be a crowd. It was amazing to actually be able to be there every day and actually like interact with the players as well. It was a really crazy experience for me. Some of them like Portuguese national players at the time as well.
You must have been distraught to not be able to sign for Sporting, because football's a hobby at that point in your career. How disappointed were you at the decision made by your family?
It's not like, I didn't see it as, I was too young to understand that it was like, for it to make like such a role. Of course, at the time, I didn't understand the importance of education as well. I've grown to give that a lot more value throughout my life and throughout my time in football. But in my mind, obviously, I didn't understand um, how much of a loss that could actually be to my career. And at the same time, if I had potentially followed that, you never know what's going to happen as well. I could have ended up being released later on. So it's quite difficult to say for sure. The fact that like I took a different path and ended up in professional football anyways, I would say it's a big victory in the end. So it could have been a great. The fact that I was there to experience it was already like a massive experience for me. So I take the benefits of that and take the positives of that.
The percentage of footballers that are in academies currently in the UK to make it professional is 1%. And probably in Portugal it'd be similar. And that's a very small number, a very big amount of players. Because these players that are playing in academies, you'd think that they could make it to the top level. So you could have been released, but you also could have made it through that pathway. However, do you look back on that and regret that happening? Or do you just think, like you say, it's just a victory and you just carry on moving?
It's to be honest, in the context of how much I've experienced throughout my career as well, it's just like a little blimp. It doesn't, I wouldn't even say it takes that much importance, because something that's so essential in football is the fact that every week is different. So you have to be so resilient and just accept certain things as they are, so you can focus on what comes next, and focus on like every little bit of every little day. So I look back at it and it's like, it was an amazing experience, sure, and it helped me it helped me understand that this is what I want for my life. So that's definitely a positive from that. And to experience that coaching every day as well, it gave me an understanding of the standard. So that was really good as well. But now I look back at it and I wouldn't say it was like a massive part of my career, given like everything else that's come in the future. So yeah, that's how I put it, I think.
You're in a basket to very similar players, very similar people that decide to go abroad outside of their native country. So, for example, you've moved out of Portugal to play in Finland and elsewhere in the world. Does that benefit you? Because I've spoken to players across the world. They might be American and they've played in Vietnam and they've played in all these crazy places, but that's allowed them to play professional football. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that Portugal is where you're going to end up one day?
Well, I got to experience Portugal again at the senior level in 2020 and 2021, and that was in Portuguese third tier. But the way I look at it is when you go, the Portuguese footballer nowadays is very valued, as well as the Portuguese coach across a lot of countries in Europe. So the way I look at it is it gives me the possibility to push something different in a different country. And as well, the major advantage of it is like experiencing different cultures and getting to look at like different environments. So I've been able to witness how people coach in Wales, how people coach in England, how people coach in Portugal, and even like in Italy and in Finland now. And I'm getting to experience so many different things, and I think that international experience is like it's really exciting for me. I like to be challenged. I like to see new environments. So I think that's like a major positive of this, to be able to do something like this. But also going into a different country, it's really valued by a lot of people and a lot of clubs, because someone is leaving their family, they're leaving their comforts to go and help a completely different club in a completely different world where they have no like loyalty to in a way. There's no reason for them to do so. But the fact that a lot of people are willing to do that, it's really valued by a lot of clubs. And you might find your value as a player, for example, for me as a Portuguese player, I find my value in Finland. And that taking that challenge of going somewhere else might be what makes your career, which is the case for me. So I definitely see why a lot of people do it.
The takeoff in your career was at Grupo Sportivo de Carcavelos. I mean, I'm not going to pronounce it because I can't pronounce it, but you started to really go through the ranks at this team, and you were the captain in the next three teams that you were at. What was that like at that club, from having the opportunity to play for Sporting and now at a club lower in the categories?
No, it was perfectly fine for me. It's obviously like being somewhere like Sporting for like the couple of weeks that I was in was really exciting at the time, but I had to establish myself somewhere, improve myself somewhere. I mean, at the time that I went to Sporting, I didn't really have like the grassroots playing experience. Nowadays, it's crazy that people actually like ask for, oh, I want a high level grassroots player. It's for me, it's kids. We're playing, we're having fun. We don't really think about these things. But I had to establish myself somewhere, get game experience, and get seen. At the time, I wasn't thinking about getting seen. I was just thinking about enjoying football. Never did it cross my mind that any of those clubs when I was playing in Portugal, that playing professionally was a possibility for me. It was just enjoying the moment and trying to get as better as I could every day and develop as much as I could.
Were you a right back at the time when you were at this age, or were you still a goalkeeper?
So Carcavelos, I started as a striker and then got moved to the wing, and I played in the wing. So I played in the wing across under 15s both years and under 17s the first year. The second year of under 17, our right back had a back injury, and I was playing right back for the school team. So I was always alternating between right back or winger for the school team, and I was playing as a winger or striker for my actual club. So when I told the coach, I was like, if I could just play right back, that's fine with me, because then I'm playing the same position in both places. It gets a bit easier for development. I don't have to think about like something on a Wednesday and then something on a Saturday. It kind of helped me like solidify a position, which I thought would help me get further. And it was like, I'd say the start of the modern fullback, where the fullback is actually pushing beyond the winger. So, and the wingers were kind of starting to do the inside type of plays. So at that time, I saw the fullback as a possibility to push my career a bit further. So that's when I started playing right back. It was my last year of under 17s with Carcavelos. A couple of games of left back as well, but that's where it started for me.
The transition is made by a lot of young footballers. A lot of them start in striker roles, wingers, and then they do work their way back. A lot of people go to centre back, left wing back, like you have done in this situation. But why is that a case? Is it just because you're asking for game time and you just want to explore new positions?
I think with kids, everyone wants to be the kid scoring the goals. And it's kind of like not wrongly or rightfully, I can't say if it's wrong or right, but it's pushed on by sometimes pressure from the parents as well. Oh, you have to score goals. You have to like, that's their idea of how the kid can show themselves is by scoring goals, getting assists. And again, as I said before, it's crazy that this is taken so seriously with kids when they should just be focusing on their development. But I think it's how it starts for a lot of kids, that they feel like they have to be up front. Not everyone gets to explore different positions going through the youth stages, which should be the case in my opinion. Kids need to like see it, because not only because it helps find their place, but it also helps them understand the game from different areas of the pitch, which is really important in my point of view. So I think it might come from kids seeing their favorite player is always a striker or the winger. It's the flashiest players. It's the ones people notice the most. So naturally, they want to be a striker or a winger. But there's so much more to football than scoring goals and playing the assists. So naturally, I think there's 11 positions on the pitch, so you need 11 players. People naturally have to migrate to other places as well.
So then you moved to Athletic Club de Porto under 19s. That's an easier one to pronounce.
Yeah.
So you were at the age of about 19, or were you playing older?
At the time, I was in Portugal. You have under 15. At the time, it was under 15s, under 17s, under 19s, and then senior. We didn't have under 23s when I was there. So under 17s, you were usually like 16, 17, or 15, 16. So when I got to under 19s, I'm an August child, so I was considerably younger than everyone else. So I was 16, and then I turned 17 after the season just started. So I was everyone in my team would have been 17, 18, aside from one or two 19-year-olds. It just kind of depended on where you are in your school placement as well.
And how did that one go? Because you were captain there as well. I mean, you must have had a great time because you stayed there for quite a while, I'm thinking. And
I did one season there, and it was like an unexpected move because I was at Carcavelos, and they're actually like kind of rival teams. They're the same local area. And towards the leaving Carcavelos, so I was finishing my second season of under 15s, and I was actually team captain that year. It was a year with a lot of instability. We went through 3 different coaches in 1 year, so it was kind of like a mad year. And I was going into from under 17s to under 19s it was, and I was going as a first year under 19. And in Carcavelos, there happened to be a full team of second year under 19s at the under 19s, so it was like I just saw it as a bit harder to push in. Whilst Porto Salvo was building kind of a new team based off first year under 19s with new facilities, because the council had just invested in Porto Salvo's facilities, meaning that the facilities were like really, really good for a club at that level. Again, we're talking about like lower levels of Portuguese football, but goes back to what I said in the beginning, that in Portugal the competition is a lot and there's a lot of quality even in grassroots. So at that time, and with it being Lisbon, it was again a very competitive area. So the way I saw it was a friend of mine had just joined Porto Salvo, so I went over to Porto Salvo as well with him just to see what it was like, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I saw the fact that they had so many first year under 19s. I saw it as more of an opportunity to get regular game time. It helped that I had a really good trial period. So from what I remember, they took me in straight after the second session. So it was, and we had a friendly as well against a British team, which really helped me set myself in that club. I saw it as an opportunity to get more game time, and that's why I stayed there.
You coached by Rui Gonçalves, who is now at under 19s of Molde over in Norway, and he really helped you boost your career. And you're smiling right now because you know the importance of him and in your career. What's he like as a person? Describe what he did to you.
So he was my coach throughout my school team, and he's actually the first coach to start me as right back, I believe. And he really, really developed my game while I was working with him over my years at the school team. He was a really important coach for me. He gave me captaincy at the school team as well. And so with my school team, we went to a couple of international tournaments. And out of the 4 that I went, I remember he gave me the opportunity to go when I was 13, turning 14. And this tournament was usually for 14 to 19-year-olds. So it was me and another player as well that we went. And we weren't quite the age to be allowed to go to this tournament. So he was really like betting on me, I felt, and he really gave me a lot of opportunities throughout that tournament. He gave me a lot of opportunities, and then throughout the final two we were together, where I captained the team in one of them, and we won 2 years in a row again, which I don't think the school had done yet throughout its years until like our team. And I remember the last tournament that we did, we actually ended the tournament without conceding a single goal. So that kind of goes to show the way that that the coach, like Rui, had developed us to be. His philosophy was just worked with everything that we had, and he wasn't like scared of breaking things down and adapting things throughout the game and improvising as well. And it was someone that he was really important to me as a coach, and he was someone that was really important in supporting me towards a professional game. Because I remember when I went over to England, he was the one that wrote my sports reference, to actually be able to go over. And still today, I keep him as a reference. He was definitely someone that was really important to me. And you can see like the career path that he's taken. He was actually in Saudi Arabia as well. I don't want to say the name of the club because I don't remember for sure, and I don't want to say the wrong one. But his coaching path was incredible as well. So it shows that it shows his talent, it shows his ability, and he was someone amazing to work with.
You've mentioned earlier that there's no under 23s in Portugal. It goes under 19 straight to the first team. And I believe you had the opportunity at ages 16 to 17 to be able to play in the first team. So what was that experience like, jumping up so much?
So at the time that I was there was no 23s. The 23s came, I want to say 2019 or 18 with the Liga Revelação, and it was only really applicable to the Premier League teams. I can't remember the exact year, but it was after I went over to England already. So this actually came at Porto Salvo. I think I was just turned 17, so I was having a good season with the under-19s, and I remember they had a friendly, and they contacted me to go play this friendly as well. So I was already we played a couple of friendlies against the first team already, and I think I did quite well, to the point that they were already considering this transition. So I think it all comes from the team kind of wanting to bet on youth as well. So as a first year, as a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old, to get a chance to go into a first team in Portugal, it's not very common. It doesn't happen very often, regardless of the level, especially at the lower levels, because there's a lot of emphasis on experience at the lower levels to get you through the leagues as fast as possible. So for a young player, it's not so easy to like push yourself into a team at that level. So it was a big deal for us.
The term youth betting, like you've just said, is one where the coach gives the opportunity to the younger players to be able to prove themselves, and the risks are lower the higher the team is. So Manchester City to bet on a 19-year-old in a game versus Aston Villa may be a bit different to if they're playing you in a relegation battle. So for yourself to be able to have the opportunity from that coach that's given you the opportunity to play against men's, to give the opportunity of someone so young, what is the response like from yourself? Do you understand how big of an opportunity that is?
Oh, totally. Something like it can be like pressure inducing, but I think I've always like coped with pressure quite well, fortunately. Especially when you're that young and you're looking at men in their 30s playing. But I think the good thing for me is I was that ability, like aggressiveness and attitude and everything, is something that comes quite natural to me. I was always a very physical player, a very aggressive player. I wasn't scared as a 17 or 16-year-old to put a foot in with a 30-year-old. I might lose the physical battle, but it doesn't matter. I tried. And I think that was like at that level, that was really valued. So I remember when we played a couple of friendlies against the senior team, that I used to like I put a foot in a couple of times, and I remember one of the 30-year-old players who actually like did not take it very well, because I think I went in a bit hard and I knocked him down, and he didn't take it well at all. But you know, when you're a 30-year-old shouting at a 16-year-old, you need to start thinking about your priorities, I think. But yeah, it's and it's, again, as I said, something that doesn't happen very very often in Portugal, so as often as I think it should.
What's it like to play in Portugal at this young level? I mean, are the facilities that good at this level? Are we talking as good as English facilities? And what sort of basis are we looking at? If you could tell me a club in England that possibly could ring a few bells.
So it depends. Depends, obviously, like the level. So teams in England have really good facilities. For example, one that I experienced quite closely, AFC Fylde. AFC Fylde has a facility I don't even want to guess how much they're worth, but they've got the 4G, they've got two grounds that they can play in, so the quality of the facilities there are incredible. And we're talking about National League side, who I think would actually have the potential to go up a lot higher, and they probably have facilities for a lot higher, but we're talking about a fifth-tier side having these amazing facilities. In Portugal, the good thing is a lot of the facilities are council-owned. So by being council-owned, there's a lot of investment into the facilities, and there's a lot of investment into sport in general. So a lot of the teams at the lower leagues actually have really good conditions. And if you look at so the tier just below the fourth tier, the fifth tier, which is the top amateur league, you can look at a lot of grounds, and there's one in Aveiro, which is really exciting, called Marial. Marialves is another one, but that's in Coimbra. But the one I'm thinking of is Florgrade. They're now in the fourth tier, and we're talking about for Portuguese Premier League facilities in terms of changing room, in terms of training ground, in terms of the actual pitch, and even like I'd say probably like better than some League One, League Two teams. Again, it's not common. There's a lot of investment in that club. And Marialves, the one I mentioned accidentally, is actually another one. They have a lot of investment. And I can't remember, it was a couple of million euros invested into their training ground facilities, to the point that they have like stuff as minor details like a panoramic restaurant, to like the ability to actually stay at the ground. They've got like cryotherapy, pool, gym, everything at the training ground. And this club is playing in the fifth tier of Portugal in the Coimbra division. So there's a lot of investment into facilities in Portugal. Of course, then you get the odd team that might have a ground pitch like gravel, and I played in a couple of those. And Porto Salvo was actually one of them that had a gravel pitch until the year that I went over, which was either the first or the second year with a new ground. So I would say facilities in Portugal are actually really, really, really good, even for the lower levels, and could compete with a lot of British grassroots. A lot of British grassroots as well ends up playing in parks or like grass pitches, which when the weather hits, it's not like you get games called off. And I think that's a major issue throughout the winter in the UK. I know there's the debate now whether you should have a winter league or a summer league, but kind of like what we have in Finland. But if the facilities are ready for that, then it shouldn't be a problem. And the good thing is in Portugal, a lot of facilities were ready for whatever came.
What's it like to be a professional footballer? To wake up on a sunny morning, to go outside and just play the sport that you love?
It's there's something really, really positive about being able to wake up every morning and just looking forward to the day because you're doing something you love. Of course, there's a lot of sides to football which are really complicated to deal with mentally as well. So it's not always just sunshine and roses and happiness every day, of course. But you have to be grateful to be able to do something that so many people would love to be able to do. And I think for me, I'm just grateful that I can do this every day. And for as long as I've been doing it, I've loved it. And I look forward to genuinely every day just because I'm grateful for this opportunity.
England came up next. You ended up moving to Liverpool, my club, and it's a great club, of course, and I think everyone should support Liverpool. And you joined the Foundation College, now known as the Steven Gerrard Academy. And that's a much better name, I think. The Steven Gerrard Academy suits it much better. And you
Legendary
developed
name.
there, but I'm not entirely sure how long you were there for. So tell us what the experience was like to play in the now Steven Gerrard Academy.
So I was there for 1 year in 2016-17, and at the time, what attracted me over, of course, was the affiliation with Liverpool Football Club, being trained by Liverpool Football Club Academy coaches, the possibility to push into the Liverpool team was, of course, like an option at the time, and also the possibility of experiencing UK football and maybe go over to like any UK football clubs. That was the main thing that excited me. So our schedule was fantastic. Really, we'd wake up again every morning, go to the gym, train, and then have our classes and then train in the afternoon. So I was lucky enough to finish my school in Portugal before I went over. So there's a lot less pressure when I was there when it came to education. It was a good chance for me to just focus on the football. It was, I think, the year that gave me the possibility to be a professional football the fact that to have something like that on my CV, it looked good not just in the UK but also internationally. The fact that we got the chance to go to the Dallas Cup in America and win it, as well as the leagues that we were involved in the UK, the National Youth Cup as well. We won that at Wolverhampton Stadium, so that was an amazing experience as well. We went into Melwood a couple of times, got to know Liverpool players. It was a really good experience to see what actual life in football was like. So again, as I'd said, football had always been kind of like a hobby. Of course, I wanted to be a professional footballer. Of course, I dreamed about it. Of course, I gave myself the best possibility to be in the potentiality of being a professional footballer in terms of training, in terms of taking care of my nutrition. So it wasn't like something I saw as possible, but it was something that was in the back of my mind and I worked towards. And that year in Liverpool was the year that pushed me towards that possibility. Of course, there was some minor stepbacks on the way, but it definitely was an important year towards being a professional footballer today.
What were some of the setbacks that hit you hard?
So it wasn't something that hit me hard per se, but the fact that I had to go into university was a very big difficulty regarding professional football. Obviously, this was started pre-COVID, but I also graduated in the year where everything was in lockdown. So that itself was a major setback. A lot of clubs weren't recruiting. There was a lot of financial difficulties. It wasn't so easy to take in a player from abroad because of the limitations regarding COVID. So that was quite complicated. And as well, when I was in education, I'd actually gone to trial in an EFL side, and I wasn't able to then continue because I was in my education. So, but it gave me the chance to go into non-league football. Non-league football in itself was an adventure. It was, I'd say, my first proper demonstration of adult football and the physicality that it actually involved. Of course, I had that like minor contact with it in Portugal as well, but Portuguese football, senior football, is very different from British senior football. There was a lot more contact, and sometimes you're playing in like, I wouldn't even call them pitches; they're just pure mud. There's a lot of like slipping and sliding, and whether it's on purpose or not, it just happens. There's a lot of contact, and it helped me grow. It helped me grow as a player, and it helped me grow as a man as well. And the fact that I played non-league football, I think I can go into any football environment in Europe and not be scared, because there is nothing that I'll experience that will be as tough as non-league football, I think. So, especially at 18, 19. So
That must have helped you. And you said that the Liverpool Academy and playing in English football really made you tougher as a footballer. But what are you like as a footballer? Are you strong? Are you fast?
So I think the main characteristics that someone will notice from me straight away is my speed. I find myself to be a very fast player. It helped me with a lot of wingers. The fact that even if I'm making like a minor mistake when it comes to 1v1 defending, I can fix it because I'm so fast. So that's, and going forward as well, it's been a major advantage in my career. So I'd say the majority of the times the good thing is you can run at 80% or 70% and get past the majority of players and still have that extra bit of energy if you need to take a little, an extra sprint either to get forward or to get back. So the speed has definitely been a major part of my career. Again, I think I'm characterized by my like endurance as well and the resilience and determination. So I think those have always been the characteristics that people notice straight away. Not being scared of a 1v1, fighting for goal recoveries, not being scared of contact. So I think those are the characteristics that would be more noticeable in me as a player.
When we're making the timeline of your career, you ended up nearly signing in Cyprus for a second-tier team. And off the pitch, there were some issues at the club. How far away was this from where we're talking at the Steven Gerrard Academy?
So obviously between then I'd been in non-league as well. So going into non-league and not coming straight from an academy, I thought that things could be a bit more complicated. Luckily, I got this chance in Cyprus, and I contacted a couple of friends of my dad and a couple of people I knew just to get a bit of information about what I was getting into. And I found out a lot about football in Cyprus and the way it works. And as a younger player, not as experienced, I spoke to actually like a Portuguese player that's out in Cyprus, and he was super awesome about it. We were on a call for like an hour. He told me like everything, and mention a certain couple of details about this club. And when I spoke to my parents, we decided that it was not something I would be comfortable in as a first experience. Maybe now I'd look at it and be like a bit more adventurous about it. But coming out of university, coming out of the piece that I was in Liverpool, it wasn't the right move. And I'm actually really glad that I didn't do that, because I got the experience to go to Portugal. So which was, I think, a lot more rewarding than if I had gone at this time to Cyprus. I'm not saying that like there's anything wrong with Cyprus football for other players that are looking at it. I'm just saying that for me at that time, it wasn't the right place.
You then went on to trial with a Portuguese Premier League team for the under-23s. And then you also got an offer from the third tier. And this is where the story starts to deepen in context, because you were on a trial and then the second day you got offered this and then that. So what happened here?
So the Portuguese club that I was going to go with was something I was like so excited about. So when I got the call saying it was official that this trial was going to happen, that's like, I think, one of my top 5 like most exciting moments in my career. But while I was there, I turned up and there was like 40 players on trial, and you're on the pitch for like 2 minutes, you're coming back off, and then you're going back on for like 2-3 minutes. For me, it was like, when I was on trial in the UK, you were integrated into the first team or the 23 team or the 19 team. You're integrated. You're there for like a couple of weeks, 6 weeks sometimes. You're experiencing it. You're adapting. You're like making friends as well. Things are like a lot easier. When you're here, this was like not what I experienced, like expected to experience from a Portuguese Premier League club. Turning up and there's like 40 players trialing, and it just seemed chaotic. From what I've heard, actually, this is something this club has done fairly regularly with quite a bit of success, surprisingly. They've actually won the Under-23s league a couple of years ago. But obviously, you get, when you're a Premier League club, you get the pick of the bunch. You can pick whoever you want to come in and just analyze them. And I think what happens in that system is you might have a few players slipping under the radar. So, but again, it was an interesting experience for me to see, and because I wasn't used to something like that being in England, where I thought things were actually like a little bit more organized in that aspect. But again, the second or third day, I got the call to go to the other club, and they gave me the date to turn up. And I actually remember sitting with my parents and thinking, should I finish the trial or should I just not go? So I talked to my dad, and he was like, I'll just do the rest of the week and then tell them like it's not going to work for you. So that's actually what I ended up doing in the end. I did finish the week with that club, but I already knew that in a couple of weeks I would have the start date at the other club. So I was meant to carry on for the second week, but it didn't work out. So I ended up to the other club instead.
Your family were at that. They were born in this town, FC Oliveira de Hospital. I've definitely the accent's not doing it justice. However, you struggled at this team, and you were coached by Jose Marcelo, a very, very well-known person. And it must have been difficult, and you've had a lot of issues in your career. And at the age of 25 now, we're going back a few more years, at the age of 20 possibly. So what was that like to experience such heartache in your parents' local town?
With of FC Oliveira. Yeah. Okay. So FC Oliveira. So my mom is from that town. So I'd grown up watching this team, and it was to actually be able to join that team was something that would like really excite me. I watched them train when I was 14. I remember like when I was a kid, I used to like try. I knew one of the players, and I used to try and actually go and train with this team when I was 14, 15, which obviously like it was really unrealistic, but it is. If you don't ask, you won't get for sure. But so it's something I've always wanted to do. And then when the possibility came to actually be able to join the team that I've watched from such a young age and the team I supported, and the team where like part of my family's from, it was something that worked for both of them, because I know the club wanted the local players, some actual local players, to be able to join the first team. So it kind of worked for both. But for me, it was so exciting, and they gave me my professional debut as well. So something I'll never forget, and it's a club that I would love to play for again one day, for sure. It's a club, really important club to me, and I met some amazing people. Again, being coached by Mr. Jose was like an amazing experience. He has such a massive CV in Portuguese football. The fact that he's probably like one of the highest scoring strikers in Portuguese history, and he has a big history with a club called Tondela, which he now manages in the Portuguese second league. So it was for me, it was very exciting to be able to learn from him, and he played like a really important role in me developing. He gave me the chance to play a couple of different positions at that club as well, so I got to see the game from different areas of the pitch. I actually made my professional debut at right winger, not at right back. We played in a 5-2-3 system, and when he changed to that system, because we started in a 4-3-3, and he adapted because we weren't really getting results until November. After November, made this change, got promoted. So it was a very, very like massive year for me. My game time like was barely existent at the time. I got a lot of friendlies, which was good. We were playing friendlies fairly regularly, so 90 minutes regularly there was good. But as it came to the league, I wasn't getting that much game time. But it was, again, just being in that environment and training every day was, I think, of the utmost importance for me to actually develop as a player. It was definitely why the next opportunity after Oliveira came through.
As a professional footballer, what's it like? How do you get ready for your job? I wouldn't even call it a job, but how do you go about your nutrition and eating food and everything that makes you a professional footballer? How does it work from the minute you wake up, from the minute you go to bed?
So I actually gave a speech in this to my old school last, honestly, January about this, which was how football is actually a 24-hour career, because every choice that you make affects everything. So how much sleep you decide to get, how much food you decide to eat, what you decide to eat, it all plays like such a massive role. And I saw a statistic recently actually about if you've got, I think it's like 2% more body fat, it can affect your like speed and everything by like 0.4, which when you're talking about like a 30-meter sprint or whatever, that's a big, or 100-meter sprint, that's like a big difference. So 2% body fat can make like such a big difference in your performance. So for me personally, I'm very careful with my nutrition, particularly in season, maybe less off season nowadays. But during the season, it can be like it's so micromanaged to the point that like one of my it's like tradition, I guess. I don't know if I should call it tradition, but 48 hours before every game, I have salmon at night, and that is because the omega-3 is synthesized during the night, so while you sleep, and it takes 48 hours for the energy release. So that's how micromanaged my diet actually is, that I consider that 48 hours before a game I have to eat salmon. I don't know if it actually works or not. Maybe it's just psychological, but it's like just an example of like how managed it actually is. And it goes from like weighing my food, and I like my routine. I like waking up in the morning, going to the gym, and then training, and then maybe going to the gym again or the pool. I like my routine, and I'm very careful with everything like that. And even my 8 hours of sleep or more. Off season, again, I might get a bit adventurous, have a Diet Coke or something every once in a while. But in season, I'm a lot more careful with how I micromanage everything. And it's something like throughout my career, it's something that's been pointed out by every coach that I've worked with. How, like, as an example, not only to like younger players, but also to like to the other players in the team, how like I micromanage everything. The fact like eating 3-4 hours before a game, everything's like super micromanaged and super controlled. So it's something I'm actually really proud of.
You've called it inexcusable, the fact that you nearly signed in England once again for a Premier League B team, but that didn't go to plan as they retracted the offer because they found somebody else. I don't think you can ever forgive that team, that club, and I'm sure you won't mention it, but the heartache that you must have felt, how did this even come about, and tell us what happened?
So I started working with a British agent. He's a super cool guy. Was a really big help for me throughout my time in the Portuguese third tier. And I started working with him, and he was like looking at a couple of options for me to get back to the UK. I did want to get back to the UK. Of course, any football player would love to play in the UK, and I hadn't like done it at a good, like a high level enough for what I wanted to actually do. So I wanted to return, and especially after that year of third tier football, I felt more developed. I felt ready for it, and this opportunity came about. At first, I couldn't even believe it, and then like it kept going on and on and on, and then we're discussing values at that point. And when you get to that level, you're like, okay, this is happening. It was to the point where I'd already like sorted a flat in London as well. So Oh, I just mentioned the city, but that's
I
fine.
think I know what club it is.
So it's so yeah, it's I was really looking forward to that possibility. And then a couple of days later, the agent just called me and he said, "Oh, they've gone with a different option. It's not happening anymore." It's football. It happens. Of course, the option I was competing with was actually someone really talented. So, not that I'm not talented, but I can understand like it's like a much secure option for them, and I totally understood why they did it. I would have probably liked a little bit more warning for the decision, but that's totally cool. It's football. It happens. So it left me in a point where I was absolutely terrified because I'd forfeited the option of playing in Portugal again for the club that I was at. I'd forfeited another solution that they'd actually found for me, which was a loan. With obviously the promotion, they'd found me a loan as well. So I was totally cool with that, and it forfeited that possibility. So it left me in a really bad situation mid transfer window as well. And I only managed to find a solution, I think, 6 days before the transfer window closed. So that was towards the end of August. Of course, it was like a really good solution at the time. So it kind of worked out for me. But I think if I did have the possibility to go to this club, it could have changed my whole career. It was like such a massive opportunity for me and my family. But it wasn't meant to be. And I think I always say everything happens for a reason. So if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. Something else will come. Like my path is there for me to find. So I can live with it.
You said that it was calm and it was fine. However, I don't think that would have been the reaction when you got.
No, totally not.
Yeah.
Now I look back at it and say it's totally fine. But at the time, it was everything but fine. I was actually, I think the thing I was most fuming about was like the apartment being sorted and everything. But you learn, you live and you learn. With football, you should never like believe something until it's on paper, until the pen is on the paper. So anything like anything that you think may happen, it may not. So until the pen is on the paper, just you go with the flow. You have to be ready for anything. And that's where I learned that lesson. So I hadn't quite learned that lesson yet until it happened. So that's where that came.
Before we find out what happened next, it's interesting what happened next. However, in a picture as a whole, when you look back at this, do you see that your career is going to take you to where that could have taken you? Do you see yourself in the Championship Premier League? Where are you seeing yourself in the next few years?
I've always set myself the goal of getting to the EFL one day. So that's a league I'd love to play, even like the National League. It's just the excitement of fans surrounding English football is something that I think is unmatched around the world. The fact that you can go to like a Northern Premier League game or Northwest Counties game, and there's like maybe 1,000 fans watching that game, and the amount of excitement they pour towards the game, it's unmatchable. So I've always set myself that goal of getting to the EFL. Now I've kind of learned about a different world of football, which really excited me, which was the world of football in Finland. And I've kind of adapted my goals to being able to play in this country. And I've set myself another goal, which was to eventually reach the Finnish Premier League. I saw that as a possibility because once you get to so I played obviously first tier earlier in my career, and when you get that little taste of European football, you start thinking about other things than just promotions and relegations. So I see this country as a possibility to get closer to a Premier League as close as possible, ideally play it in one day, experience a European competition. So I think in countries like Finland, Faroe Islands, Iceland, this possibility becomes so much more approachable. You see the progression between the leagues from players a lot more, so they look a lot more nationally, which I think is a big possibility for me. So your priorities change.
Your priorities then landed yourself in the Wales Premier League, and it was your first serious injury that hit you. So again, another roadblock in your path, but there were 6 days left of the transfer window. You signed in the Welsh Premier League. That's not the worst of decisions that you could have made, right?
No, but at the time, definitely not. It looked to me, for me, I looked at that club as like an amazing opportunity. I never thought I'd be playing the Premier League. I didn't know that possibility was out there for me. So, and I learned a bit about the Welsh Premier League, which was at the time coming from the Portuguese third tier. It wasn't like a league that I knew a lot about. So it looked to me like it's a really exciting opportunity to play a first tier. And again, I was thinking European football. where else are you going to get a chance like that? Only in the Premier League. So I saw it as like an amazing chance for me, and it was something that I was really excited for.
The club currently are now no longer in operation. I think you said to me that they don't operate anymore. However, when you were there, did you see, because there's two major clubs in Wales, you've got Swans and you've got Cardiff, and they're very good teams. And it's unfortunate that they're not part of the Premier League over in Wales because of the revenue that they would be able to bring into the league. So I don't think I could name you a Welsh Premier League team, if I'm going to be honest. I maybe could, maybe actually one team, Suru. CY. I don't know, but there's a few teams out there that do have the potential, and you were there yourself. You've experienced it. What's the Welsh Premier Division like? Is it as good as League One, League Two?
I'd say it's really hard to judge in comparison to English football because certain players have left the Welsh Premier League to go on to play in the English Football League, and vice versa. We got a couple of English Football League players go on to play for TNS from the possibility of going on to play European football again. TNS is someone that wins the Welsh Premier League pretty much every year, and they're pretty much guaranteed to go on to play a qualifier for European football. So again, a lot of EFL players see that possibility, and it's something that excites them. So the Welsh football is really hard to place amongst the English level, I'd say. It's a very competitive league. It's a very physical league, very intense. Can be like athleticism can play like quite a big role in the Welsh Premier League. The issue with the Welsh Premier League right now, I would say, is the domination is so obvious from TNS that it becomes like really hard to compete. So TNS have won the league pretty, like, I don't want to say exactly, but like I pretty much every year for the last like 5-10 years, I don't know. They've won it like for pretty much every year. They had some competition from Connors Key, Nomads. I'd say like there's a couple of other teams that do go up against them, but TNS are just really up there. What that means is they qualify for Europe pretty much every year, which then creates a bit even bigger imbalance every year because they're so like financially so backed and so well ahead of everyone else that it becomes like really hard to create competition within the league. Maybe increasing the amount of teams in that league could be an advantage, could change things up. I don't know, like it's not for me to say for sure, but I think that's like the main issue right now is the clear domination from TNS ahead of everyone else. The good thing is you do see teams to go on to Europe and actually like putting on results. Haverfordwest. Oh, sorry, I didn't defend Haverfordwest, but yeah, Haverfordwest have recently gone out to do really well in the European competition. They challenged, I want to say, a team from Faroe Islands, maybe. And they beat a team in the playoff before, so it was really exciting to see. And again, it's nice to see a different team go out in Europe and do really well. So hopefully that does wonders for Haverfordwest going on forward in the Welsh Prem and creates a bit more competition.
We've just over 5 minutes left, and there's a lot to get through. So I just wanted to ask you, when you were at this Welsh club, what was this injury like? How far did it set you back?
It was a really big setback. It was the first major setback of my career. I think it was 2-3 months out with an abdominal injury, and at first we weren't really sure what it was. It was really hard for me to deal with, and I was looking at it kind of like a failure. I did feel like there was no coming back from it, and I was kind of worried that that was it for me in football. There were times where I wasn't even sure if I was ever going to get back to full fitness, and especially for a player that depends a lot on his physicality, his pace, and everything, you start wondering, oh, is it ever going to be the same? So that was, there's a lot going through my mind in that period. It was a really difficult period for me in my career.
Finland then came along after Wales. Haka came along, and this was again a great opportunity for you. You've worked with Lewis, and you've said to me that he's honest, he's knowledgeable, and he pushed you a lot. However, there must have been some issues in this as well, because then you got offers from other teams. So there's been issues off the pitch, possibly, that maybe push you to leave. But then you've also said it's got to hold a special place in your heart. This club is a very special place, that you fell in love with the city, and you've spoken about Finland very positively so far. What was it like then at this club?
So the club was like a really amazing experience. It helped me, the way I describe it is it helped me fall back in love with football. And working with Luis was like an amazing experience for me. Luis is such a talented coach. He's out in India now with an Indian, I don't remember the name of the team, but he's out. It's actually a project by Benfica. So obviously he's like really well placed within football doing something like that. And he was an amazing coach to work with, and it really helped me develop my game. He changed a lot of like certain traits of mine to which have now given me more opportunities in professional football. So he was someone really important to me. And Haka was like a really amazing experience. I won Player of the Year at Haka as well. So that was my first Player of the Year in senior football. So that year was actually, even though our results in the end weren't like what we wanted, we got relegated, which was really unfortunate. But there was a lot of incidents that we couldn't have helped. Our goalkeeper got a 3-match suspension and then got injured in the training session and had to retire. We didn't have a backup goalkeeper. We only had the under-19s goalkeeper because we thought that we'd be all right with this goalkeeper for the whole season. Stuff happens. That was it. He's now retired, and we lost our goalkeeper for the season. We had other issues between like unexpected injuries. We had, I think, 3 fractures in the first 3 games, so lost 3 key players straight away in the beginning of the season. So things were really tough. We kept our positive mindset. We fought until the end, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. I know there was one match that got investigated for match fixing towards the end of the season. I don't know what came from that, but obviously nothing because the result didn't change. So we don't actually know what happened, but we should have really done better. We couldn't deal with the off the pitch issues related to the injuries and the suspensions and everything. But individually, I look into that season with a lot of love. It was a really good season for me. And again, I went back the year after to Haka, so this season that just finished. So something went right there.
You turned down moves to Czech Republic and Italy, 2 very good countries, but Italy, obviously, the one that you probably favour. And what sort of divisions would we be looking at here? Because these are 2 clubs that could definitely give you a pathway into a European competition.
So I was looking at lower tiers of Italy. Czech Republic, I think it was the second. It wasn't really like as official. In Italy, I actually ended up traveling over there. But what I saw in Italy was something that I wasn't prepared to experience. I was promised certain conditions and everything, and then I was hearing from the players certain issues with unpaid wages and everything. So it wasn't like something I was prepared to experience. I got to the accommodation as well. There was like 6 players in one accommodation. We didn't have that in Finland. We had a lot like our own rooms and everything. So it wasn't something I was prepared to do at this age as well. Maybe when I was 18, 19, but not at this age. So I remember I arrived in Italy, saw everything, was terribly shocked, and got the first flight back to Portugal the next day. It wasn't what I wanted for my life. Could have been good for my career. It was good financially for sure, but not for my life. And I value my life just as much as I value my football. So I wasn't prepared to deal with that.
I've spoken to a lot of people, and match fixing and these behind the scenes unpaid wages and things like that do really affect a footballer's decision to be at a club. But those players, if you were in their shoes, those players that are not getting their wages and they are unhappy at a football club, why can't they just not turn up? Why can't they just leave? Because at the end of the day, they're not getting paid to do their job.
Well, I've been in the shoes, so that's happened to me before. But it's a really difficult factor because it starts affecting your personal life as well. And when your head and your personal and your mental side isn't there, you start losing the football side as well. So it just all comes collapsing down, and it's really not an easy thing to deal with. But again, a lot of players do choose to go on strike. I think you are legally allowed to do so after 2-3 months. I'm not sure what the number was. I think it depends on the country as well. But then you're just missing out on training. You're missing out on basically like keeping fit as well. It creates a whole different pressure on you to keep fit individually. So again, it depends on the player. Certain players will go on strike. For me personally, I don't think that's not how I dealt with it. I just tried to carry on and hope that things fix themselves. Is that the right way of dealing with it? Probably not as well, because mentally you become very affected by it. So there's different ways of looking at it for sure.
So you then got purchased by a club called GB Coquelin, and for an undisclosed fee this was, and you were invited by Brazilian legend Toro. And you said that when someone like him comes knocking on the door, you can't say no. So what happened here? Undisclosed fee, a lot of business going on. What happened?
Oh, the fee business was so crazy. Like that was such a like I didn't witness very much of it, but the little bits I witnessed of it was absolutely crazy. It was I felt like someone was waving me at the beach or something, saying, "Oh, look, 5 euros, no, 10 euros now." It was bizarre. It was just a bizarre experience. I felt like a kebab or something. I don't know, but it was really interesting, and it was like something ticked off my bucket list as well, because it's something every footballer would love to be in that situation. But again, Toro, where he'd messaged me about the possibility of coming to play, and you know this guy's been there and done everything. He's played Libertadores. He's got over 100 Brazilian Premier League games for like Flamengo, Mineiro, I think Goiás as well. I mean, I might have got a team wrong, but he's been there. He's done it all. So someone as experienced with him as him comes knocking, you have to take that chance. Even the possibility of learning from someone like him, for me, is what excited me the most, to be able to be around him every day. And he's honestly such a humble, one of the coolest people I've ever met. So one of the coolest people to work with, and he helped me so much throughout the season, because it took me like quite a while to adapt to Kokkola and the change. I came from a situation where I was like I captained the team actually for Haka. I was one of the captains, and then coming off a Player of the Year season, and times were like quite tough for us. We lost a lot of players from last season naturally, so only me and the Brazilian player came back from the foreign players. So, and then he left to the Faroe Islands second league. So it was like a difficult environment to be in. And I felt like the new league that Haka went into wasn't challenging me. And that was my main concern, that I was going to start losing development. So I had to go back up to the league we were in, and then Kokkola gave me that possibility. So again, it was a really good experience to be involved with Kokkola. The facilities are so good. The gym facilities were crazy good as well. The level of training, the quality of the players. Again, I was being pushed. I felt like I was being challenged again. And then working with someone like Toro is one in a lifetime experience. It was really amazing to be able to do that.
Jose, that is everything from me today. I really, really appreciate everything that you've come on here and said. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but you are hopefully going to be signing with a new team in the coming weeks, I'm hoping. And that means that there's more opportunities to come. And seriously, I just wish you all the best in your career, and hopefully you'll be in the Premier League one day.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me and for doing what you're doing. It's really exciting to see everyone you brought on, and your challenge of interviewing someone from each country. It's really cool, so I look forward to listening to them.
Cheers. Thank you very much.